What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American Politics, back in with a new video, and today we have a new poll watch video. That's right, folks, the most favorite series on this channel according to the viewers. Poll Watch is back with another video. This time we have two polls that have just been released out of the great state of Wisconsin. One from Emerson College, which is a good enough pollster, but has had some struggles in the past, and the best pollster in the country, Big Data Poll. Now, before I forget, of course, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit the little bell, and yes, of course, go follow the mysterious Twitter account in the description down below. And yeah, also join the channel. That is right, folks, for just 10 cents a day, you can join Real American Politics. Again, I recommend you do it because that support brings daily content, and you also get a good feeling in your heart if you join today. Alright, enough promotion, let's get into it. So, Emerson College and Big Data have both released a new poll out of the great state of Wisconsin, and it's time that we look at it. So, we're going to start with Emerson College, then work our way towards Big Data. So, let's get into it. So, in Emerson, they actually have Ron Johnson winning this race by around 4, which, if you don't know Wisconsin polling, Ron Johnson has basically never led in any polls before. There's been like once or twice, but he's basically never led by more than a point. He's winning by 4, and he is a vast overperformer of the polls. He has a history of it. I mean, he overperformed polls by 5 points in 2016. 2010, I think it was 4 points. He's a big overperformer, as big if not bigger than Trump in the state of Wisconsin. He finds a way to win, all right, even though the polls say otherwise. And you look down here into the interactive report. We also got results from the gubernatorial race. Tim Michaels is at 43% and Tony Evers at 45%. Here's the thing, though. John Ellis, Ellis, I should say, Binglinger, I think it's you say the last name of her, she dropped out of the race and endorsed Tim Michaels. So, once again, I have a problem with this poll. Why do you include, her when she dropped out? Like, is she on the ballot? I don't believe so. I think she dropped out just in time. So, I have a problem with this. So, a lot of these voters are going to go over to Tim Michaels, which may explain why there's such a big gap between Johnson and Michaels, that a lot of these independent, voters from Benglinger, I think that's how you say her last name again. I don't know how to say her last name. I don't know if that's correct. But point is, she was running as, a conservative independent. She dropped out, endorsed Michaels and Johnson. So I think that, a lot of these voters, they're going to vote for Michaels, which may already give Michaels an edge in this poll. And the rest of this report, it's kind of the same thing, Mar-a-Lago thing, which I have a problem with. This seems like a fairly, left-leaning independent sample. I mean, Biden winning independents by 9, I highly doubt that. There's definitely, something wrong with some of these, crosstabs for Emerson, but overall, it's about what I would expect. Biden's approval is not great in Wisconsin at all, and the biggest issue in Wisconsin, of course, is the economy. Then abortion, which again, 90% of these people were going to vote anyways, doesn't matter. Then something else, which makes me think it's a certain E word. Election, you know what? That's what I think this something else is. Then healthcare and all that good stuff, alright? As for independence, kind of same deal. The economy and all that. So, that's the top line of the poll. Let's get into the crosstabs. So, let's get into it. Really nothing to say much here about the crosstabs because I really want to get into the Big Data poll, but overall, it really shows the same thing. And once again, the freaking very likely. I have such a big problem with this. Them including basically only very likely voters. I have a massive problem with it. Like, I know this is going to be the biggest electorate, probably like 70%, but making it 90% of the electorate, is very likely. You're missing a lot of these somewhat likely voters. Like, they don't have a history of voting that much, but they're more than likely going to vote this cycle. And you can see they disapprove of Biden by a wider margin. And once again, and surprisingly, this is a weird one, the somewhat likely voters are actually favoring Barnes, which once again makes me think they really undersampled a lot of these, somewhat likely voters, because these somewhat likely voters in basically every single poll has favored Republicans by a vast amount. So, I don't know. It just doesn't seem that right, but again, a lot of this crosstabs, you can read into it. I'm not going to go much into it because kind of the same thing we've seen from other Emerson polls. Just very weird crosstabs for Wisconsin. But it does show Ron Johnson winning and Tim Michels basically within the margin of error. So, now we got to get into the gold standard of polling, big data. And there was a couple things that did, stand out right away. So let's go to Senate vote preference. And let's go by parent, right? Parental. You see here, Ron Johnson is absolutely crushing it with parent voters. If you don't know, these voters, nationally, they tended to vote a bit to the left, right? Compared to the national environment. But here, look at this. They're all going towards Johnson by such extreme amounts. And the only vote group that Barnes is winning of parental is none. So there's definitely a shift going on. The education stuff really is indicating that, Ron Johnson is surging. Once again, Ron Johnson in this poll is up by around 3 points. As for the gubernatorial race, you look here, Tim Michels is up basically by 0.2%, so essentially a tie. And they did include the independent candidate, but she only got 2% here. So I don't know if she's still on the ballot. I'm pretty sure she shouldn't be, but I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But this is another thing that fascinated me about this poll. Age. You go here. All right. Ron Johnson is, of course, doing great with, middle-aged people, doing great with, older, 45 to 64. But the 65-plus group, it's essentially tied. And you go to the gubernatorial vote preference. Look at this. This is the big deviance. Michels is actually doing a bit better with those middle-aged voters. Well, I think maybe underperforming a little bit. Like 45, 65. Michels about like a point below. But look at the 65-plus group. He's down by 13 with them, which fascinated me right off the bat. Like, how are you down by that much? But that's the thing. It's like he's doing a bit better by, a point or so with these middle-aged voters. But he's just getting clobbered with these 65-plus vote. Now, these undecided, boomers, they're going to probably favor Michels. So that's the thing about this, poll. A lot of these undecideds are favorable to Tim Michels. Now, we go by voting likelihood, right? This is another thing, right? Wrong one. This is the wrong one. Region. Region's the one that I want to look at. So this is a big thing about Wisconsin. Politically, it's a state based on region. Whoever wins this election wins it based on doing good in X region or whatever. And you compare it to the Senate race, right? So, Northeast, Ron Johnson's winning by 10. Northeast, Tim Michels is winning by 15. The Northeast, according to this poll, is, the Green Bay area, more working class, traditionally more Republican part of the state. Now, according to Marquette, this area was going to trend heavy Democrat. But right here, as you can see, Michels is doing way better with traditional working class voters compared to Ron Johnson. Now, the Southwest, I think that's about even. Tim Michels actually is way below, but I wonder if that's like Dane County. Dane County is going to be a bit more favorable to Ron Johnson than Tim Michels. But there's definitely some, deviance. I mean, the Southeast, of course, Ron Johnson's running away with it, the Waukesha area. Northwest, it's about even. So based on region, it appears that, the vote, Northeastern voters are actually favoring, Michels more than Ron Johnson, more working class voters. Based on what I'm seeing here, right? Based on what I'm seeing, again, this is the first time I looked at this. it appears that working class voters are favoring Tim Michaels over Ron Johnson by a substantial amount. I mean, look at this. High score or less. Michaels is winning by 13, while Ron Johnson winning them by only 8. Some/associate, that's where Michaels is struggling. The more college-educated vote, the less working class. 4-year graduate, Ron Johnson only loses by 5, while Tim Michaels losing by 10. So as you can see here, Tim Michaels is, I think, doing much better with that traditional Trump base. The working class voter in Wisconsin. While Ron Johnson, he's doing better than he did in 2016 with those voters, but still his main thing is, the some/associate degree, traditional Republican voters in the Waukesha area. So that's kind of that for the poll, all right? But there is one more thing I wanted to show you guys before we end today's video. So, in the past couple of days, I've been working on my own polling aggregate. That's right, folks. I have a polling aggregate now. So every time we do a poll watch or anything like that, we're going to shove this new poll or whatever into the aggregate and we're going to see what it shows. So there are a couple guidelines, right? 1, the poll must be a likely voter sample. I'm sick and tired of registered voter polls. 2nd, must have a sample size of 600. That's the average margin of error of 4%. So that's kind of like the perfect, minimum, basically 4% margin of error or less. So let's look at it. We have the following polls in the aggregate. All right, sorry about that, folks. I just had to clear my throat. So we have 5 pollsters. Again, most of these pollsters are on the RCP aggregate, except Big Data. Don't know why they're not included, but either way, they're included here. So there is a couple of weights. The first one is recency. The further out it's been since they polled it, like Trafalgar's back in August, they're weighed less compared to Emerson, Big Data, etc. And there also is a sample weight. You take the sample size, you do a basic formula, you get the weight, and you average out the weights. And this is what you get for the polling weight, or the poll weight, right? So, Emerson and Big Data have the bigger weights, while Trafalgar has a smaller one. And after all the math is done, Ron Johnson's currently leading this aggregate. But here's the catch. I took into account the past polling errors in Wisconsin's in 2016, 2018, and 2020. And the expected results based on the average polling bias in the last couple of cycles means Ron Johnson's more than likely going to win this race currently by 7 points. Yeah, that's based on past polling errors. It's a 5.5% error in favor of Democrats. Now, Wisconsin governorship, kind of the same deal. The polling aggregate actually has, Tim Michaels losing by around 2 points. But when you account for the past bias, he's actually more than likely going to win this race by around 3.5. So there is some deviance from Michaels to Johnson. Michaels is slightly underperforming Johnson, but that was kind of expected because Ron Johnson, he has more of the population centers on his side, Waukesha, Ozaki, etc. Well, Tim Michaels appears to be doing better, in the more rural, used to be more Democrat parts of the state, like North Wisconsin, up north, I should say, southwestern Wisconsin, etc. He's doing better in those regions while struggling, in southeastern Wisconsin, where Waukesha is. So that's the poll watch for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit the little bell, and yes, of course, go follow the mysterious Twitter account in the description down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Godspeed to all of you.